'Tis the season for setting goals. No matter if you're the kind of person who always achieves their goals every year or has never stuck with a goal before, this video is relevant to you. Because it really gets at how we set our goals, how we implement, how we stay motivated, and how we get over our fears. How to set yourself up for that at the beginning. The reason that I don't just jump into action whenever I set a goal is because I want to actually enjoy the end result. And there are ways to get to an end result where you don't really enjoy them. And honestly, I think this is a trap a lot of musicians fall into. I've definitely achieved things and just wasn't able to enjoy them because of how I was motivating myself in the process and my reasons behind actually having those goals. This video series is to help you mitigate negativity and really get you where you want to go in a sustainable way, so you can actually enjoy it in the end. I'm Chelsea. I am a flutist and a mindset coach for musicians. I'm a classical musician, and I help musicians with the human part of being a musician. We all learn the musical aspects in school, in life, but it's really hard to navigate these ups and downs sometimes. And if you're a career musician, or even if you just play for fun, you know how important setting goals are and maintaining a plan and a process to achieve them. My first piece of advice when setting a goal is to make it something that you have control over. I see musicians fall into this trap a lot because their goal a lot of the time is to win a competition or an audition, or they want a specific job, or they want to get into a specific festival. And the problem with that is you don't have control over it. You're not the one making the decision. It's not like a marathon where you can run the race and you are in control over yourself running the race. You have to be chosen by someone else. So, an overarching goal could be someday I want to be an orchestral musician, which would involve winning an audition. But any specific audition being the goal, I would seriously advise against. Instead, make the goal whatever action you need to take to create the best product or best offering for a committee or judges or whatever it might be. And then you'll have the best chance of being chosen. So your goal shifts to more things that you can control rather than things that are out of your control. The outcome of things is a result of how amazingly you perform or play or do whatever it is that you do. Let's say you're starting a business. It's however good your value is to your customers, right? So whatever that is, that's your goal. Instead of my goal is to make people like me, we can't control that. So that goal, we're already not on a solid foundation. Unless, of course, you have mind control, in which case I don't think you'd be watching this video. The second thing to keep in mind when setting goals is that it's supposed to feel a little bit scary. If you have never done something before, your brain is going to freak out. It is not wired to do new things without immense amounts of caution. Your survival instincts kick in. It's safe to not do new things. And so if your brain can keep you safe and in a box, it will. And it'll do that by thinking of worst case scenarios. It will start doubting you. It will start maybe even talking to you critically and really negatively. I know that when I beat myself up a lot, part of me is just kind of scared most of the time. And that's honestly the first way I identify fear a lot of the time, is if I'm being hyper mean and self-critical to myself. If we think of this survival instinct, when we all lived in the woods in groups of 100 people, if we did something new, that was usually pretty unsafe, especially if we were doing it alone. Because if we got separated from our group of people, we would die in the woods alone. So that's why rejection and embarrassment feel so strong to us, is because those are literal survival instincts kicking in. So big goals are supposed to feel scary if you've never done those things before. Expect your brain to freak out a little bit. Expect it to discourage you, but don't listen to it. It's a liar. It's just thinking that you're unsafe. And if you can remind your brain and body that you are safe, it can actually be really helpful. I'm going to do another video on self-doubt as a survival instinct and how to manage it when it comes up. So if that's posted, you'll find it up here. The next thing I recommend to consider is to love your reasons for setting this goal and to know why you're setting it. It's so much easier to overcome obstacles when you know why you're doing something. When you write down why you're doing something, you get really clear on what is motivating you. Now, this is not the time for toxic positivity when you do this. Be real with yourself. This is a time to observe your brain, how it's working, how it's thinking. And yes, it is outside of you. You are not your brain. You are not your thoughts. This way, you can notice whether you are setting goals for yourself or maybe to prove yourself. Those two things are extremely different, and it will be the determination of whether you're actually going to enjoy your goal at the end of it. This is what I mean. For an example, let's say you want to change your physique in some way. You're not happy with how you look, and honestly, you tear yourself down all the time. You either want to gain or lose weight or muscle or whatever you want to do. You just want to change your appearance. Now, there are two ways to go about this. Your motivation can come from shame and hatred for yourself and how you look, or it can come from love. If it comes from hate, then you look into your mirror every morning, you hate what you see, and it motivates you to go to the gym. It motivates you to eat differently. Now, what you're practicing every morning when you look in the mirror as an emotion, in association with yourself, is hatred or shame. This practice day after day, and I don't need to tell musicians about practice. If you do this day after day for months on end, for an entire year, once you get to that goal, are you magically going to do something you haven't practiced all of a sudden? Maybe for 5 to 10 minutes, maybe for a few days, until that neural pathway just keeps going in the same way it always has been all year. Then what? Then you've done all this work, but you can't enjoy it. Now, a different way to go about it is through wanting to give this goal to yourself. You can motivate yourself through care, not through go Chelsea. I'm not a super cheerleady positivity person. I think I'm generally optimistic, but I don't have like pom-poms at the ready for myself, if that makes sense. Instead, you can say, oh, I really want to give myself this life experience of being whatever body shape or size that I want to be. And now this is just an example, of course, but you can do that for orchestral auditions. You can do that for competitions. I want to give myself the best possible opportunity to win this. I want to give myself a career that I absolutely love. I want to give myself financial stability, success, whatever it might be, because I love myself and I think I deserve it. When we try to prove ourselves, we're using a goal to get to a baseline that we can just decide. So if you think that you need to prove yourself because you are somehow unworthy, then you try to use goals in order to fill that void so you can feel good enough. I definitely used to do this. I used to try to check every single box. I tried to be perfect in every aspect of my life so I would finally feel good enough. But good enough is an opinion. Therefore, you can just decide to think it. Worthiness is a made-up human construct, and everyone is worthy. Or worthiness doesn't exist, right? Like a cat doesn't question whether it's worthy, right? It just exists. So really think about what's motivating this goal, why are you doing it, and be really honest with yourself. And that's not to say that you shouldn't shift the goal, but I would recommend shifting your motivation. Now, tangibly, explore a timeline, not a deadline necessarily. How long do you want this goal to take, and why? Could it be shorter? Could it be longer? What would it look like if you tried to do it in half the time? What would you have to do? what would that look like? What would you do differently? What if it took 2 years to achieve this goal? Would you still do it? What if it took 5 years? Is it still worth doing? Now, to me, if a goal is worth doing, it is worth taking however long it takes. This is the part I think a lot of people miss when setting goals. We tend to overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. So if you have a goal for financial freedom, stability, success in whatever you're doing, if you're willing to do that in a year, but if it takes me 3 years, I'm going to quit. Think about that. Are you all in for the experience of doing the actions that are required, whether or not you get the outcome you want? That is how you know when something is worth doing. This is the thing that I really want to drive home. It is not about actually achieving the outcome. It is about becoming the person who would get the outcome. So, for example, if somebody wins an audition tomorrow, they have a position tomorrow, but they have become the person that's the kind of person that wins auditions today. They're that person today. They're not changing before tomorrow. There's no magic that goes into an audition day that automatically makes you the kind of person that wins an audition. Same thing for any goal. So if you want to be the kind of person that gets the goal that you're going after, you have to become that person in the process. And the faster you can accelerate that, the faster you'll get to your goal. I'll go over that in another video more in depth. But if you want a workbook that has all of these prompts that I just gave you, all of these things to consider and more, and these are things I'm going to go through in this whole series. If you want a step-by-step guide, you can get that absolutely for free in the link down below in the description. I also want to just take a second to say, if you're not feeling this goal thing, I know last year I didn't set any goals. I was allergic to them for some reason. This year I have a lot, but it just ebbs and flows. You could set your goals in July instead of January. Who knows? You could set goals at any time. Once again, explore that timeline. If it's worth doing, then maybe it's doing slowly and just a little bit at a time. So I will leave you with that. And if you want to check out this video, you will find the absolute fastest way to achieve your goals. I'll see you there.